Thank you for joining us for today's message. We believe we can go anywhere in the world from right here in Marque, Texas, and reach people just like you. If you'd like more information about Abundant Life, please visit ALCC.org. You can also text the number below if you would like to support the church financially. Be ready for a powerful message that's going to impact your life.
I can tell how long my message is going to be depending on how many notes I have, and this is a lot of notes. So I'm going to need y'all to do two things. I'm going to need you to listen quick because I'm going to talk fast because we're not going to be here long. But I need you to help me out and jump in this message with me. Because if you amen and you help me a little bit, then I'm going to go even better. I promise I'm better if you help me than if you're just sitting there listening. I'm not very good. I've been on both sides of that, and I'm not very good. So 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3, I love this. So, for though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. We take captive every thought. I think that's really probably one of the most important things you can do as a believer is take your thoughts captive. Just because a thought is in your head doesn't mean you got to dwell on it. Just because a thought shows up doesn't mean that you gotta focus on what that thought is, because everybody has bad thoughts. Everybody's got bad thoughts, and I'm not just talking about like lustful thoughts or thoughts where you're cussing out the person in front of you because they didn't go when the light turned green. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about everybody's got thoughts of fear. Everybody's got thoughts of failure. Everybody's got thoughts of disappointment and brokenness and hurt, and everybody's got thoughts of negativity. We all have these thoughts that show up. But watch, just because a thought is there doesn't mean you dwell on it. What we do is we take captive our thoughts, and I only dwell on the thoughts that matter. I only dwell on the thoughts that are going to make me better. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in life in getting worse. I'm only interested in getting better. It doesn't mean I'm always getting better, but I'm sure trying. I'm pressing that direction in. And I love it because we live in two worlds. We live in the natural world. Everyone understands that. We live naturally, and we fight natural battles every day. You get up and your knees hurt, and you fight that battle, and your bills have to be paid. You fight that battle. Your coworkers are jerks. You fight that battle. We all fight battles naturally, but the Bible says that there are weapons that we fight with that are not carnal. They are not natural, but they are spiritual. Greatest weapon we have is the faith that God has given us. What is faith? Somebody give me a definition of faith. All right. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. That is a King James Bible-believing definition. And I know Anthony believes it. I see Anthony at the gym, and we'll be preaching to one another. More him to me, I think, and I like it. Anthony knows. Somebody else, give me a definition of faith. Give me the redneck, simple, hometown, no Bible knowledge definition. Anybody got one? Believing in what you can't see. That way we got both. The saints will understand the substance of things hoped for, evidence not yet seen. And then all you other people, all the Gentiles in the building will be like, all right, faith is something I can't see, but I believe anyway. We're hitting both sides. I'm trying to get both. Because I answered that way. Anthony, I answered that way in Bible school. I was in Bible school my first week. Teacher said, what's faith? And boy, I thought I was on point. Substance of things hoped for. Evidence of things not yet seen. He said, I know what the Bible says. He said, what do you say? I was like, well, I don't know. I said, I guess it's believing without seeing. He said, there you go. Because that's what that means. I hope for something. I'm believing in something, but I don't see it yet. That's what faith is. Faith in its most simple, easy form is believing in something that seems impossible, that looks impossible because you can't see it yet, but yet you somehow know that it's real. I feel like pregnancy is faith to the father, because I can see my wife's belly getting bigger. I can see the pictures from the doctor, but I can't feel it. I can't experience it. So as a father, I was believing that it was happening, even though I couldn't really experience any. That was my little, and again, you know what's going on, you know what's there, but that was my faith. I was like, man, I believe that there's a baby in there, even though I have no real evidence of it yet. I'm believing it. I'm hoping for it because there's sometimes you have to believe before you see. That's what faith is all about. And 1 Samuel chapter 17 this morning, if you want to go back to the Old Testament. 1 Samuel 17 and verse 1, it said the Philistines had gathered their forces and that assembled on one side of the valley, and Saul and his army, the army of Israel, had assembled on the other side. And they were both separated by the valley of Elah, and they'd drawn up their battle lines. And I like it because most of this story in 1 Samuel, I'm going to just tell you the story instead of reading the scripture, because there's a lot of scripture, and I want to just make it a little bit more interesting than just me reading to you. But there's two armies, one on one side of the hill, one on the other. And it's interesting because the Philistines were not native to this land. The Israelites were mountain people. They stayed in the mountains, and that was where their kingdom was. But the Philistines had come in from the sea. They were seafaring people, and they were relentless warriors. They were strong, they were powerful, and they wouldn't stop. And so they came in from the valleys, and they wanted to take Israel. They wanted to take the kingdom and destroy it. Through history, you see that the Philistines were one of Israel's greatest enemies. And so what they were trying to do here is they were trying to come up and cut Israel in two. They were trying to separate the nation of Israel. And so they came to the valley of Elah, and they're there in the valley on one side of the mountain, and Israel's on the other side. And the problem with this is you've got two armies that are up in the hills, and you got a valley in between them, and if you wanted to attack the other army, you would have to go down into the valley, and then you would have to hike up the other side of the mountain, and you would be totally exposed. And so really the chance of winning a victory here is very slim if you were to just straight out attack the other army. So what the Philistines did is it said a champion, verse 4, named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. And his height was 6 cubits in the span. Most scholars believe he was around 9 feet tall, 9 feet 4. And it says he had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels, over 120 pounds of armor on his body. And his legs, he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was swung on his back, and a spear shaft like a weaver's rod was in his hand, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels, over 32 pounds. This giant is standing there, and it says he would walk up, and his shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and he shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle?" He said, "Am I a Philistine? Are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he's able to fight and kill me, we'll be your subjects. But if I overcome him, you will be our subjects and serve us." And then the Philistine said, this is where he messed up. He said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight together." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and his Israelite army were dismayed, and they were terrified. It's interesting because Goliath comes out to fight. 40 days, it says. He comes out and stands in the middle of the valley, totally exposed, and he said, "Send somebody to fight me." He challenges the Israelites. He challenged them. He says, "Send somebody. Come and fight me." And I love this because it says, and I never really thought about this thought before, but he said, if you win this battle, we'll be your servants. But if we win this battle, you will be our servants. Isn't that just like the devil? Isn't that just like the devil? Because I don't know about you, but I've learned in my life is made up of many battles, but it's one war that I'm fighting. But my life is not made up of one battle, it's made up of many battles. And if I lived by this rule, which is what the enemy wants to do, he wants to get me to live by the rule of if I lose this battle, I lose the war. That's not the way God sets it up. God didn't set my life up that if I lose this battle to addiction, that I've lost the war in my life. If I lose this battle to depression, I've lost the war in my life. If I've lost this battle in my relationship, I've lost the war in my life. That's not the life God set up for me. God said the righteous man may fall 7 times, but he gets back up every time. You got to realize it doesn't matter how many battles you lose as long as you keep fighting. As long as you rise up every time and say, "Man, the devil might have got me yesterday. He might have beaten me, but I'm not beaten. I'm not broken. I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep fighting because one battle is not my war." And that's what the devil does. He comes out and he challenges you. And he said, if you lose this battle, you will serve me forever. Nah, not me, devil. Not me, devil. If you lose the battle, no, that's not the rules I live by. You see, the devil wants to change the rules in the middle of the game. He wants to change the rules. The problem is he didn't create the game. He can't change the rules, but God can. God can change the rules because it's his game. He created the game. He can change the rules. If God said, I don't want the sun to shine anymore, he could do it. Why? Because he's God. He created the sun. He can do what he wants. If God says, you look broken, but you don't have to be. You look beaten, but you don't have to be. You look sick, but you don't have to be. The devil says you look sick, you've got to be sick. But God says you don't have to be. The rules can change in your life. No, the giant came out and he said, let's fight. He said, and if you fight me and lose, you're going to lose. And God says, no, that's not the way it's going to work. Because this is a war we're in. It's not a battle. We're in a marathon. It's not a sprint. Because if it was a sprint, we'd already all lost by now. We'd already been done. We would have lost before we ever had a chance to get saved. But thank God we're in a war. Thank God we're in a marathon. Thank God we didn't fight the devil on his terms. Thank God we didn't stand toe-to-toe with the devil and say, devil, I'm going to fight you the way you want me to fight you, when you want me to fight you, how you want me to fight you. Thank God we didn't fight the devil on his terms. Because Goliath said, come and fight me. Fight me on my terms. The battle lines were drawn and the armies were on one side and the other. And the armies at this time, I'm going to just give you some history, some context. The armies were made up of three main elements. They were infantry, soldiers that had shields and swords, men on foot soldiers, infantry. We all understand that. There was cavalry, chariots, horses, donkeys, camels, whatever, that they would ride. So they were quick and they could do different things. And artillery was the third one. In this time, they would either be people shooting arrows or, in Israel's case, people with slingshots. And you had slingshots and you could sling a stone. And I'll explain how those stones flew in just a second. But these three factions of the army really, they evened each other out. Anybody ever played rock, paper, scissors before? Y'all played rock, paper, scissors, right? My daughter just figured out what rock, paper, scissors is. She only knows rock. She knows paper and scissors, doesn't use them. She only uses rock. Until I use scissors, then the next time she uses scissors. And then I'll use paper, and then she'll use paper. But I'm like, oh, you got paper, I got scissors. You know, it's not the way it works. I'm going to beat you every time like this. So, but she does rock, paper, scissors with me. And so what do? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot, right? Rock, paper, scissors. It's interesting because the rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper beats rock. It's just like the army. It's just like the three factions of the army. Scissors beats paper. Infantry, swords, beat cavalry because they can set up, and as the cavalry's coming, you kill the horse, you kill the guy on the horse. Infantry stops cavalry. Scissors beats paper. Paper beats artillery. Paper beats rock. Because the horse is moving too fast, you can't get proper aim, you can't kill a horse that you can't catch. So the artillery is negated by the cavalry. And rock beats scissors. Artillery beats the sword. Artillery always beats the infantry. Why? Because the infantry is slow and they're standing. And how can you kill a soldier that you're so far away from? If you're 200 yards from a soldier and I've got a sword and he's got a bow and arrow, he's going to beat me every time. Because watch, they negate each other. The artillery, the slingers, are always going to beat the soldiers. Now, again, I'm boring you with this, but it's going to make a lot of sense in just a minute. Because Goliath is standing out there for 40 days, and he's telling the Israelites, come and fight me man to man. Come and stand toe to toe, and let's fight. Let's have a battle. Let's do this. I'm tired of waiting. He said, let's have a fight. For 40 days of stress, 40 days of anxiety, 40 days of fear, 40 days of being beaten down and humiliated. Goliath standing there for 40 days. And finally, David shows up on the scene. He's there to deliver some food to his brothers. And he hears Goliath saying this. And David says, man, I'll beat this giant. He says, I'm not afraid of this giant. David at this time, most people believe he's around 15, 16, 17 years old. Goliath is a grown man, and David is standing there, a little boy, saying, man, I could take this giant. He ain't nothing special. The Bible says somebody overhears him, so they bring him to Saul. And David says to Saul, the king, David, the boy, says to the king, let no man lose heart on account of this Philistine. He said, I'll go fight him. I'm not scared. And Saul said, you are not able to go against this Philistine. He said, you're only a young man, and he has been a warrior since his youth. Saul underestimated David. People in your life underestimate you every day. You're being underestimated by people. People underestimate how great you are. People underestimate how special you are. People underestimate the power that's on the inside of you, the God-given power that's living inside of you. You are so great on the inside, but day after day, people look at you and they just see you. They see who you used to be. They see what you're doing, but they don't realize the potential living on the inside of you, the greatness that God has placed inside of you. Look, I don't know if you believe me, that would have been a heck of a time to get excited if I was you. If I was sitting down there and somebody said, man, there is greatness on the inside of you. There's potential on the inside. Everybody underestimates you. You know what I would be saying? I'd be like, you're dang right they underestimate me. I don't know who the heck I am. I'm the best there ever was. That's what I'd be saying, because somebody is telling me there's greatness on the inside of me. You know what that tells me? That you don't respond too well to that? That you've been underestimated your entire life. And you started believing it. You started believing that you were just okay. That you're just average. You know what? You're not average. You're not average. You're not just okay. You're better than that. You're better than that. And you say, you don't know me. I don't need to know you, because I know God, and God has put something on the inside of you. You can't live an average life, a normal day-to-day, just get by life, when there's greatness living inside of you. You got to start believing it, because if you don't believe in you, who's going to? David believed in himself. He said, I'm great. He said, I don't care about that giant. I don't care what he looks like. I don't care what he talks like. I don't care how big he is. I don't care about the weapons he's carrying. I'm better than him. I'm greater than him. There is something inside of me that he doesn't know about. You've got to get that inside of you. You got to start believing you are the greatest creation that has ever walked this planet. You say, yeah, but I'm not anybody special. You know why? Because you don't believe you're somebody special. You are greater than you think you are. You're better than you think you are. I know you're sitting there thinking, well, you don't really know anything. You're just trying to get me excited about it. You're right, I am. Because if you don't see it, I've got to drag it out of you. I got no problem telling you you're great, because I don't know you. I don't know where you've been. I don't know what you've done. I don't know where you were yesterday. I don't know the thoughts that you think. So sure, I can tell you you're great. But you know what? That's the way you ought to think. Because that's the way God thinks. God says, I know where you were, but I don't care. Because there's greatness inside of you. There's power inside of you. David looked at this giant and he said, I'm not afraid. You can't let other people talk you out of what God has put inside of you. You can't let them talk you out of it, because they will try. I promise you, Saul tried. He said, you're a boy and he's a man. David said, I don't care. You don't know me. I don't know where I grew up. He said, I got 7 brothers. They're all bigger than me. I'm not scared of this giant. He said, it was 7-on-1. I ain't afraid. David said, nah. He said, I'm not scared. He said, I've been keeping my dad's sheep. He said, a lion would show up and grab one of my sheep. So I chased him down. He said, I hit him in the head with my rock and I cut his head off. He said, you see that blanket that I carry that's got the lion skin? Yeah, that's his skin. He said, a bear came and took one of my sheep. You know what I did? I chased it down. I hit him with a rock. I cut his head off. He said, you see that bear skin on my cart? Yeah, it's his skin. So I ain't scared of this giant. He said, because when the lion came, it was bigger than me. When the bear came, it was bigger than me. It was greater than me. My brothers said I couldn't do it. My people said I couldn't. The lambs looked at me like I was crazy. He said, but he went and came and he took something that was mine. He said, I went after him and I killed him. He said, and this giant is nothing different. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. He said, I'm not afraid. Look at your neighbor and say, I ain't scared. Some of y'all, like my mom, if she was here, she was an English teacher. She'd be shaking her head. So you're not supposed to say ain't. I said, I don't care. That's how David said it. David said, man, I'm not worried about this. Get out of here. Watch this. David was, at this time, he was already anointed king. He was already, in God's eyes, the king of this nation. Saul had already been passed over. David had already been anointed. He'd already had the oil poured on him. He was the king in God's eyes, but he was not yet the king in the natural world. We live in the natural, but we fight in the spiritual. And David said, watch this. David said, when the sheep who were under my control, who were under my command, when they were taken, when they were afraid, I went after what made them afraid. He said, and these people in David's heart, he said, these are the people that God has given me. I am the shepherd of this nation, and what God has given me, I will protect, and I will fight for. Look, what God has given you in your life, you protect it. You fight for it. You go to war for it. You don't be afraid when the devil comes and attacks your children, because those are your children. God has given you those children. You fight for those children. When the devil attacks your body, don't get afraid. You fight for that body. You go to war for that. Why? Because it's yours. God gave it to you. You've got to fight for what God has given you. God gave it to you. You got to fight for it. David said, I will fight for this. He said, yeah, but he's a giant. He said, I'm not afraid of the giant. The only person that day that didn't think David was an underdog was David. Oh man, that's got to get real. That's got to get real. The only person that didn't think that David was an underdog was David. When you see a big team play a little team, what do they always say? It's a David and Goliath experience. No, it's not. David was not the underdog in this story. He looks like the underdog. He acts like the underdog. But when you look at the story, David was so much better than the giant that he was facing. You say, yeah, but he was a giant. You don't know that. Watch this. I was studying about underdogs. I was studying about, because I was looking at this, and you always hear the David and Goliath story, whatever. And I was looking at this, and I was looking at underdogs, and somebody did a study a while back in history with war. And if two nations were fighting, and the bigger nation, watch this is insane, was 100 times bigger, and they were fighting the smaller nation, the winning percentage of the big nation over the little nation, 70%. 70% of the time. 7 out of 10 times that the big nation fought the little nation, the big nation won. I mean, we are like, yeah, that makes sense. 70% of the time, the big nation ought to destroy the little nation. This is what's crazy. When the little nation, same statistics, same 100 to 1, when the little nation refused to fight the fight like the big nation fought, okay? Back in the American Revolution, we all understand, we went to history class. The British would stand in a line with their guns. The Americans would stand in line with their guns, and they'd be me to these chairs, and they'd shoot each other. Like, who made up that? Like, I look at that, and I'm like, if I'm fighting in that war, the second that they get ready, and they're like, ready, aim, I'm hitting the ground. I'm not standing there to get shot. Like, that's stupid. Like, it makes no sense to me, right? But watch this. When the little nation refused to fight like the big nation, the little nation won 67% of the time. It didn't matter how much bigger they were. It didn't matter how much more money they had, how many more guns they had. When the little nation said, I'm not going to fight this battle like you fight this battle, they won 67%. They turned the odds almost 100 times. When I was in high school, we played basketball. I played basketball. I wasn't great, but I was good. I was okay. It wasn't my favorite sport. I played basketball to stay in shape for track. That's why I played. But my junior year in high school, we made it to the state championship tournament. We made it to the tournament where if you get there 4 games and you're the state champions. And we were a small school. I grew up in Idaho, if you don't know. Idaho is we're a white state. At least we were back then. I knew 2 black people from the ages of 0 to 18 because there were 2 black people that I ever saw. I never saw anybody but white people because it's Idaho. That's just the way it was. And so, but we were playing basketball in the state tournament, and we were playing against the number 1 team in the entire state. First game. And they were good. It was a school out of northern Idaho. They were called Lapaway was the name of the school. And it was an Indian reservation. And they would pack the stands with all these Native Americans. And their chief would be there. And he would have this big bullhorn. It sounds crazy. And he would have this huge bullhorn, and they were the Lapaway Wildcats. And they would pack these stadiums, and the chief would get there, and he'd yell, Lapaway, and the entire crowd would yell, Wildcats, and they would do it the entire game. So you got all these Indians in like Indian stuff, like just being mean. And then the team. Now watch, these guys were back-to-back state champions. They hadn't lost a game in 3 years. This is what's crazy. They hadn't won a game by less than 20 points in 3 years. We played them first game. They had 3 black dudes on the team that went D1 ball. I don't know where they came from. There are 2 in the state of Idaho, and they got 3 on their team. And these guys were ballers. They were so good. Like in their warm-ups, they're running around, dunking behind the back, alley-oop, like banging it off the backboard. The guy would tomahawk. And I'm talking about, it was insane how good they were. And we watched tape on them. And all the tape, they were really good, and they would fast break, but they didn't really have, they kind of played street ball style. They weren't well coached, and they were so good, and they just humiliated people. And there would always be a turning point in the game where they would have a fast break, and they would like bang the ball off the backboard, and the dude would slam it home, and they would just go nuts, and the crowd would go nuts. And you could see in every game that there was a turning point. There was like, that's the moment that it demoralized the other team. And they just got beat. Every team got beat. So we go into the game. And we're just like, we're small town. My town had 300 people in it. We're small town. Don't know nothing. Coming against the number 1 team in the state. And we were worried. And our coach in the huddle said, they will not dunk on us. I was like, have you seen their warm-ups? Like, that's all they're going to do. You know? I was like, man, we're in trouble. Couple minutes into the game, couple minutes in, maybe 4 minutes in, they get a fast break play. I was sitting on the bench. Man, I told you I wasn't great. I wasn't a starter. Not that year. And so they get a fast break coming down. I'm talking about the dude, it was over. I was like, one of their players was dragging behind the other one. I was like, I told my guy next to me, I said, this either going off the backboard or he's going alley-oop it. It's bad news either way. Dude comes up, tosses the ball up into the air. The other guy's coming. He's about to slam it home. It was over. And one of our guys, I love it. One of our guys comes right underneath the dude that was going to dunk it and just boom, pushes his legs out from under him while he's in the air. Dude goes bam, straight on the ground. You would have thought that the oxygen got pulled out of that room. That crowd shut their mouth. That kid got up, he made his free throws, and our coach pulled us in, timeout, gave the dude a high five. And he said, full court press, rest of the game. He said, we're not going to let them breathe. Because what they were going to use to humiliate us, we cut the legs out. They didn't dunk the ball one time. They didn't make 10 good inbound passes the entire game. We had them covered the entire game. We just kept subbing in and out because we were just smothering them. We beat them by 25 points. They hadn't lost a game in 3 years. We beat them by 25 points, went on to win the state championship. Watch, we refused to play their game. We said, you want to run on us? We're not going to let you. You want to dunk on us? We're going to foul you. We're not going to let you control how this game is going to go. Watch, when the devil comes at you and he tries to control you and he tries to embarrass you and he says, this is going to be a moment in your life, you will look back and you will say, I was embarrassed by this. You cut the devil's legs out. You say, I will not be embarrassed. This will not be a moment where I learn to play by your rules. This will be the moment that I got a victory over the enemy. And I said, I will not bow, and I will not break, and I will not be hurt. But I'm going to rise up on the inside, and I'm going to say, devil, you couldn't have me then. You can't have me now. I'm not going to play by your rules anymore. I'm not going to play this game by your rules anymore. And so what happens? David is standing there looking at the giant. Everybody's like, man, this giant's the best. Undefeated, undisputed, greatest heavyweight champion in the world. Never been beat in battle. You know what my question is? Had he ever been in a battle? Or was he just so big and so great looking and wore so much armor and talked such a good game? Was he ever in a battle? Or did they just lay their swords down and say, you're too big for us to fight? I wonder. I was reading about the disease that most scholars think that he had. It's called acrogamy, I think, or something. Anyways, there's a benign tumor on the pituitary gland. I'll just tell you what it is. That keeps putting out human growth hormone that makes you get to be a giant like that. But the problem is it messes with your eyesight too, because it presses on the nerves of your ocular sight, and so you end up not being able to see well, so you're real nearsighted. And they say most scholars believe that Goliath had a problem with his eyesight, because why would such a great warrior need somebody else to hold his shield? Why did he need somebody else? Why would a warrior need somebody else to bring him, to lead him onto the battlefield? I wonder if Goliath had ever even fought a battle, or if he was just so big and so strong looking. And that's what they said. They said these giants, they look strong, but it doesn't mean they are. They just look it. He could hold the armor, but could he swing a sword? I don't know. Again, it's not in the Bible, so I'm just wondering. But Goliath was the favorite in everybody's eyes. And everybody saw how big and how strong and how scary and how intimidating he was. But David said, no, I just see that he's too big to dodge the rock that I'm about to throw at his face. They said, yeah, but look at his javelin, look at his sword, and look at his shield. David said, I'm not going to get close enough for him to ever be able to use any of that stuff. They said a good stone slinger. I got some stuff. I don't know if the ushers, you got them. You guys got them? You got your slingshot? I was going to give everybody like a stone ball to sling, but I didn't want to we got this screen up here. I didn't want Scotty to get mad at me. You say, why did you give us a slingshot? I'm going to explain it in a second, but they said a good slinger. Now, not one like this. I mean, when I was a kid, boy, I messed around with some slingshots. It was terrible. When I was a kid, but watch, these slingshots, it was like 4 strands and you would swing it. And a good one, they said, could get that going around 7 to 8 times a second. 1,000. It just went around 8 times. And when they'd let go, said the stones where David was, it's a certain type of stone. I don't remember. I didn't write it down. I wish I would have, but it was something bentonite or something. I don't know. They say it was 2 times more dense than almost any other stone anywhere else. So it was like hurling a metal ball. They say that those slingshots, when you really fire it, from the distance that David would have been, they say that stone will go 35 meters a second. They said it was as if David had a 45 pointed at Goliath's head. A 45 caliber handgun. That's the force that stone was flying. David didn't care about his armor. He didn't care about his sword. He didn't care about his spear. He said he's never going to get a chance to use it. Watch, because the devil is calling you. And Goliath said to David, he said, come to me and we will fight. Why? Because he couldn't see. I think he couldn't see. Because when David comes, he said, who am I, a dog, that you would send a boy with sticks? David didn't have sticks. He had a staff, one stick. I don't know if Goliath was seeing double. I don't know what he saw. I don't know. But David said, I'm not afraid of you. Because all the weapons you have, I've already defeated you with distance. That's a word for somebody. That's a word for somebody in your life. Watch this. The devil is using weapons against you, but you've already defeated the devil with distance. God has already won the battle. He's already caused every weapon that the devil would have to use against you. He's already nullified every attack and every weapon, and the devil has nothing more to use against you. And the Bible says that David stood there and he waited. And I look at this, and Goliath was still shouting to him, saying, I'm going to feed your body to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. I'm going to kill you today, boy. And David said, no, not today. The giant was talking, and he was talking false confidence, and he was talking fear, but what he should have been doing was running in terror. Because had the giant realized that he was not against the cavalry and he was not against the infantry, but he was against somebody who was going to stand 50 yards from him and throw a rock at his head, he would have been terrified because he had no chance against someone that knew how to throw a stone. He should have been terrified. If the swordsman wants to fight on his terms, I'll tell you, you will lose every time. Because God did not create you to fight the devil toe-to-toe. God created you to rise above. God created you to get some altitude in your fight. And he said, I want you to have separation from the enemy that's trying to fight you. I want you to separate. I love this because David says, I'm not fighting for Saul's daughter. I'm not fighting for the kingship. I'm not fighting for my dad's house to be tax-free. I'm not fighting for the glory. I'm fighting that all may know that there is a God in Israel. Look, when you fight for the right reasons in your life and you stand up to the enemy, not because you need to, not because you want to, but because God has called you to. And you say, devil, you can't have my family because my family is under God. You can't have my job because my job is under God. You can't have my body because my body is under God. When you get that on the inside of you and you say, I'm fighting from a different altitude. I'm not going to fight toe to toe. Whatever you do in word or deed, do it unto the Lord. When you get that in here, and then it gets in here, you say, I don't care what goes on in my life, I'm going to do it unto the Lord. Go ahead and stand up on your feet. Because the devil says, come closer. The devil says, come closer. The devil says, come closer. Because he wants to swing the sword. Because if you're in a sword fight, you'll lose every time. Because you're not equipped to fight with the sword. You're supposed to sling a stone. And the devil wants to get you close, and he wants to attack you on his terms, in his way. But God did not call you to fight on the devil's terms. God called you to change the rules of the battle. God called you to change the rules. And watch this. When you have an advantage, you've got to use it. I need somebody small. I need somebody small. I need somebody small. I need somebody this cool, this small. Right there. My man, can you help me? Can you help me for a second? Y'all give him a big hand. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. Omri, come on, help. All right. Okay, Omri, right? All right, can you punch me? You could punch me, right? I want you to swing at me with your best shot. I want you to hit me as hard as you can, okay? You got it? All right, watch this. Go ahead, hit me. Hit me. Go ahead. Hit me as hard as you can. Do it. Hit me as hard as you can. Hit me in the chest as hard as you can. Hard as you can. Oh, well, you weren't supposed to hit me, but all right, one more time. Hit me as hard as you can. Go ahead. Hit me. It's tough, right? You know why? You know why I can't hit me? You know why I can't be hit? Because I've got an advantage. I got a reach advantage. I mean, if I was going to get hit, I'm going to lay on the ground crying. Is that good? Thanks for helping me. All right, y'all, give me a hand. Watch this. I got a reach advantage. I got the advantage. If you can't touch me, you can't hit me. If you can't touch me, you can't hit me. If you can't touch me, if you can't reach me, you can't hit me, you can't touch me, you can't hurt me. I got a reach advantage. I got an advantage. And watch, David was standing against a warrior who was looking to defeat him. And David said, all I need is a sling and a stone. Jesus came to the earth and he said, all I need is 2 sticks in the form of a cross to come against the greatest enemy the world had ever seen. And the devil was standing there pointing at you, accusing you, telling you were going to die in your sin and you were going to be nothing and you were going to be broken forever and you were going to live in depression and you were going to be burnt down and broken and you were going to be a failure your entire life. And the devil accused you, but God put his son on a cross and he said, no. He said, what the devil has meant for evil, God said, I'm about to flip the script. I'm going to turn it around. He can't have you. He can't have you. He can't have you.
To learn more, visit walterhallam.net. Here you'll find a list of resources to help you with your daily walk in Christ.